Every time you hear a date spoken with confidence, something subtle happens. Your mind treats it as settled truth. 44 BC. AD 1066. The year 1492. These numbers feel permanent, almost natural, as if history itself stamped them into reality. But history doesn't come with timestamps. Humans had to decide where time begins, how it flows, and what events matter enough to anchor everything else. In this episode, we're unpacking how we decided to count history, why this particular system survived, and what it quietly tells us about power, belief, and civilization. If you value explanations that go beneath the surface instead of repeating what you've already heard, subscribing now keeps you connected to conversations that respect your curiosity and intelligence. For most of human history, there was no such thing as a shared calendar across cultures. Time was local. People measured years based on what mattered to them immediately. Ancient Egyptians tied time to dynasties and floods of the Nile. Romans often counted years from the founding of their city, or named them after current political leaders. If leadership changed, the way years were labeled changed with it. These systems worked well enough for local governance but became useless when comparing events across regions or generations. There was no urgency to create a universal timeline because societies were largely isolated. But as trade expanded, empires grew, and religions spread, the lack of a shared dating system became a real problem. You cannot coordinate laws, record history, or preserve doctrine without agreeing on when something happened. The need for consistency did not arise from philosophy or science. It came from administration. The foundation of the BC and AD system begins in the 6th century with a monk named Dionysius Exiguus. His task was not to organize world history. He was trying to calculate the date of Easter, which required knowing how years related to one another. At the time, many Christian communities dated events according to the reigns of Roman emperors, including persecutors of Christians. Dionysius wanted a system that reflected Christian identity rather than imperial power. He proposed anchoring the calendar to what he believed was the year of Jesus Christ's birth, calling the years that followed Anno Domini, meaning, in the year of the Lord. This was not meant as a grand statement about history. Actually, it was just a practical solution to a religious scheduling problem. What makes this moment so significant is not Dionysius's intention, but how others later adopted and expanded his idea. A detail many people never learn is that Dionysius did not label earlier years as before Christ. His system only moved forward. The concept of BC developed later, once historians needed a way to describe events that predated the Christian era using the same framework. The English monk Bede, writing in the 8th century, played a major role in spreading this method. His historical works used AD consistently and, hinted at a way to describe earlier years in relation to it. Over time, this approach became standard in Western historical writing. It allowed scholars to place events on a single continuous timeline. That convenience, honestly, mattered more than precision. Even though the exact year of Jesus' birth was uncertain, the structure was useful. Once rulers began using it in official documents, laws, and treaties, the system gained real authority. Calendars only work when people in power enforce them. The BC and AD system became dominant when leaders like Charlemagne adopted it for governance. Once administration, taxation, and legal records depended on it, there was no practical alternative. Timekeeping became standardized, not because it was philosophically superior, but because it was operationally efficient. As European influence expanded through exploration, colonization, and scientific exchange, this calendar spread with it. By the time the Gregorian calendar was introduced in 1582 to fix astronomical drift, the AD framework was already deeply embedded. Changing the starting point of history would have meant rewriting centuries of records. Accuracy became secondary to continuity. One of the strangest features of our calendar is the absence of a year zero. The timeline jumps directly from 1 BC to AD 1. This was not a deliberate design choice. It reflects the mathematical understanding of medieval Europe, which had not fully integrated zero as a number. That limitation became locked into the calendar itself. This has real consequences. Calculating spans of time across the BC and AD divide requires special care. It's a small reminder that even systems we treat as precise are built on historical assumptions and constraints. The calendar carries the fingerprints of the era that created it. As the modern world became more global and more secular, scholars began questioning the religious language embedded in historical dating. This led to the adoption of BCE, meaning before Common Era, and CE, meaning Common Era. These labels refer to the exact same years as BC and AD. Nothing about the timeline itself changes. What changes is accessibility. BCE and CE allow historians, scientists, and students from different cultural and religious backgrounds to speak about time without centering a specific belief system. It's not an erasure of history, it's an adjustment in language that reflects a broader audience. You know, not all cultures agree that the birth of Christ should anchor time. The Islamic calendar, for example, begins with the Hijra, which is Muhammad's migration from Mecca to Medina. The Hebrew calendar, on the other hand, counts years from what tradition says is the creation of the world. Then there's the Buddhist calendar, which begins near the death of the Buddha. And more recently, there have been proposals like the Holocene calendar, moving the starting point all the way back to the rise of human civilization itself. These systems highlight an important truth. Calendars are statements of values. Where you begin counting says what you believe matters most. The way we count history is not neutral. It reflects who held power, which stories were preserved, and which systems proved practical enough to spread. Understanding this doesn't weaken history. It strengthens it. It teaches us to see familiar structures as human tools rather than fixed truths. If this explanation added clarity to something you've always taken for granted, share it with someone who enjoys learning how simple things shape the world. And make sure you're subscribed to Simple Things Explained so you don't miss future episodes that dig into the quiet systems behind everyday life.